to do is wait until there's a problem and then figure it out based on what is the critter. Is it really intense to the point where I need to do something? Critters are difficult because they're site specific and they're season specific. It may be that you have groundhogs or deer or rabbits that decimate your garden and the birds are eating all of your berries. And so a low fence, it could be made from chicken wire, any sort of mesh, will likely keep out rabbits. Even just having an elevated raised bed a couple feet off the ground may exclude rabbits. If you have a dog, your dog may do the job for you. And so it may be that you don't need to take a lot of action, but if you have groundhogs or if you have deer, that's where things get more complicated. If you want a fixed fence to keep deer out of a large garden, for example, or out of an orchard, you'll need to build an 8-foot tall woven wire mesh fence. There are a lot of different options, but just make sure that they're large enough that the deer can't jump over the fence. And consider having this fence be multifunctional. Always ask the question, how many different functions can each design element serve? You could build a fence and that fence could also support the growth of grapes or hardy kiwi or other vining crops. Groundhogs are difficult to keep out of a garden. They'll climb over an 8-foot fence. They'll dig under an 8-foot fence. Your last line of defense is often going to be in the form of an electric fence. Poultry netting is often what it's referred to as. It could be plugged into the grid. It doesn't take a lot of power. It could also be solar powered. And the way it works is the fence company will include bait caps. You'll lure the critter towards the fence and it will get shocked on its very sensitive nose. And then the fence will act as more of a psychological barrier. So I've kept out deer, which again can jump over an 8-foot fence. I've kept out deer with a 3 or 4 foot tall electric fence. Sometimes it makes sense to have a perimeter fence around the orchard, 8 foot tall. Sometimes it makes sense to have an electric fence. Sometimes you can get away with building 8-foot tall like cylinders of fence around each individual fruit tree, but always make sure that each fruit tree has what are called trunk guards, which could be hardware cloth around the trunk. It could also be a plastic sleeve around the trunk that will help prevent rodents from girdling the tree, eating the bark, which can kill your fruit trees. The last thing to consider are birds, especially that's a problem with berries. So for example, if you're growing blueberries, your birds are going to eat all of the berries. And so I recommend a bird netting, but most bird netting is actually fairly cumbersome to work with. What I prefer is shade cloth, which is a finer mesh. You can drape it over the blueberries just during the 3 months or 4 months where you're harvesting, and then remove that shade cloth when you're done. I find that shade cloth works better than bird netting because the bird netting gets tangled in with the shrub. And so it's just a lot easier to drape something over the shrubs. And so from a design perspective, locate all of your blueberries in a line or in one area so that they're easier to net. You could also think about putting your strawberries under and around your blueberries so that when you're netting them from the birds, you're protecting everything all at once. And another strategy to think about is plant more than you think you need, because critters are going to be a problem. You can't keep chipmunks out of your garden. You can't really keep squirrels out of your garden. So it's generally not a problem to have too many strawberries. That's one of those good problems.